Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news, and unfortunately we're talking about David De Gea, Dean Henderson and this ongoing story that I just, to be honest with you, I don't normally open up with this, but I do not see why this is still going on. And I think, look, it's from the Manchester Evening News, it's from the same journalist again, and it's almost to the point, I think he must have Dean Henderson on his screensaver, and he must wake up every morning thinking about David De Gea, because it's like, it's constant. It really... What bothers me most about it is I'm all for opinion, and that's what it is. It's his opinion, and actually this actually says there's sources attached to this story that United want to sell De Gea and that Dean Henderson will ask to leave if he's not the goalkeeper by the end of the year. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing that bothers me the most is that I can look at Manchester United, and in fairness, this same journalist gave David De Gea a 6 out of 10 yesterday. I mean, I gave him 7, but he didn't say he was terrible. But what worries me the most, if you really are a Manchester United fan, we are wasting so much time talking about something that's actually not anywhere near our biggest issue. As I said this morning, we're conceding too many goals because we're not marking people in the box. And I gave 4 examples out of the last 7 goals that we conceded. And also our centre-back pairing is making us play too deep and not making us defend properly. But we keep talking about this goalkeeper situation, which is 100% created, not by De Gea, not by Dean Henderson. The football club created this. We spoke about it back in the summer. Giving Dean Henderson 140k a week and a long-term contract was foolish, because you knew this was going to happen. You knew you were going to create a divide. We've got a divide in the fan base. Some want Henderson, some want De Gea. We've got a divide potentially in the team itself. Solskjaer is dealing with an issue that's not even his issue, but he's got to deal with it. This was just foolish by the club. You do not put yourself in a situation where you've got 2 fantastic goalkeepers and you can only pick one. It leads to ridiculous situations where we're playing one in the Europa League and one in the Premier League. That's not a decision, that's a halfway house. And neither goalkeeper will actually be happy with that. Both of them will want to be the full-time goalkeeper because that's what should happen. But we put ourselves in a ridiculous situation again, which I'll talk about more in a moment, where we've created this issue. And it's an issue that Solskjaer... Imagine if Solskjaer didn't have De Gea or he didn't have Dean Henderson. He would put one in goal, that would be his goalkeeper, and he'd be able to focus on other things. But now this is a constant issue that shouldn't be an issue, and it's created by the club. But the latest story, let me just give you the story. So this is from the Manchester Evening News. They understand that Dean Henderson is not happy, he's frustrated, and he will be asking to leave Manchester United in the summer if he is not the full-time first-team goalkeeper. And that also in the same article, senior people at Manchester United think it might be time to sell David De Gea. Now let's deal with that story first of all. I don't personally think Dean Henderson is frustrated. I think he knew this situation would happen, and I think he's waiting for his opportunity to become the goalkeeper. If he is frustrated, he knows where the door is. Cheerio. Because you're not just going to get given David De Gea's shirt, certainly not in relation to this season. So you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to be patient. And I think he will be patient. The second thing is, if certain people in Manchester United think it's time to sell David De Gea, I've got a really, really easy way of solving this. You can't. Because you gave him a contract that means he can't be sold. And what makes me laugh the most out of all of this is that we are wasting so much time talking about selling De Gea, selling Henderson, la-di-da, when the reality is, it doesn't really matter if you team David De Gea. It doesn't really matter if you team Dean Henderson. You've got to look at the situation. You've got to look at the financials. And the reality is, David De Gea's contract does not run out for another 3.5 years, 2024. He's only 1.5 year into a 5-year contract on 350k a week. That's £18 million a year. And Man United think they're going to drop De Gea and then sell him in the summer. You've got no chance. They've created this issue where whatever you think about David De Gea, and I stand with De Gea, I've told you this before, I don't think he's doing anything wrong. He is our goalkeeper. Let the battle commence, whatever. But for people who are saying, let's just sell him, I mean, this is this sort of short-sighted, fuzzy thinking as football fans that does us no credit. It's the same people who think we're going to spend £200 million in the summer and buy Rice, Sancho, Ronaldo and everybody else. We can't sell David De Gea because nobody will buy him. We are in the middle of a world crisis because of COVID. Many football clubs don't have money. David De Gea's got 3 years left on his contract, and people think somebody's going to give him £18 million a year in wages and then give us £50 million as well. Not going to happen. He's in an unsellable position unless, and this better not happen, we have to sell him at a huge loss. So all these people saying, let's sell De Gea and go with Henderson, you need to appreciate the contract he's on. And you also need to realise it's not his fault. The board gave David De Gea a 5-year contract on 350k a week 18 months ago. It's not as easy as going, let's sell De Gea and let's play Henderson, because to sell De Gea, you're going to probably have to write off 50 to 100 million pounds. We're paying him 18 million pounds a year. That's, with 3.5 years left on his contract, that's over 60 million pounds. And he's worth 50. So how are you going to write 100 million pounds off just so that you can play Dean Henderson in goal? This goes beyond a battle of two goalkeepers. This goes on. This is basically about money. And Man United have created this situation by giving Dean Henderson a contract and saying, Ollie, there's two good goalkeepers for you. Quite simply, it's an untenable situation. One of them has got to go. But just saying De Gea's got to go, I mean, I'd love to see who's going to construct this deal, because the great thing is, it's a bit like Alexis Sanchez, but worse. When you've got somebody on ridiculous wages like that, whether he deserves it or not, you can't just go, oh, let's go him, because somebody has got to buy him. Somebody's got to buy him. So all the board had to do was sell Hendo with a buyback clause in it, so that when we're ready to get rid of Dave, they could bring him back too. Their incompetence as Gabriel Noel. Truth is, I don't see us within a title with either of them. There's no doubt in my mind if Pep was here, he would buy a goalkeeper. They're both okay, not great, says Robert McCormack. If United want De Gea out, it shows a complete lack of respect to a loyal servant and United great. The club's morals would be tainted. The club is meant to represent loyalty always. They should be ashamed and embarrassed, says Daniel Kirk. And I heard that United are looking at Donnarumma. Well, look, that story, Mando, let me just bring you that. There was a story. It's from that Spanish website that seems to have appeared over the last couple of years, that will come out with stories like United want Messi and Ronaldo in a double deal. So I don't believe the story anyway, but it was mentioning Donnarumma, and it mentioned that PSG and Bayern and somebody else wanted De Gea. I mean, just stop. Like, stop. You cannot sell David De Gea without writing off 50 to 100 million pounds. That's all I would say. If we sell De Gea in the summer, we're going to have to write off 50 to 100 million pounds just because of the contract he's on, and nobody will pay that. That's the biggest issue here. But if you look at it, if you go back to last summer, forget the goalkeepers, you've got to look at the financials. We'll talk about the goalkeepers in a minute, but the financials are the real thing here. And it's all well and good for Manchester Evening News journalist Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, Sky Sports, BT. It's all right for them to say De Gea needs to be dropped and Henderson needs to play, because it's not they're not in charge of the football club. They're not the manager. They don't have to write off 50 to 100 million pounds. They can just sit there with very, very helicopter views and say, well, if I was in charge, this is what I do, because they don't actually think about the wider thing. The wider thing is that there's a huge amount of money wrapped up in this. And you don't just go dropping a goalkeeper for another goalkeeper just on, oh, I think he'll do better, when the other goalkeeper doesn't even deserve to be dropped. But if you do that, you could be bloody writing off such a huge amount of money. And it goes back to last summer. I said this last summer, and to be fair, I think Gary Neville said it as well. It was a stupid decision what we made about Dean Henderson then, because we'd already committed to De Gea. He'd only just signed the new contract less than a year before on huge money. To then give Dean Henderson a 5-year contract on 140k and keep him at the club was just thick. I mean, look, Dean Henderson's a good goalkeeper, but we weren't in a position to give him the number 1 shirt, because he's our best paid player, David De Gea, I think. We've just invested huge amounts of money in David De Gea. We cannot sell him and we cannot drop him, but we then give a goalkeeper 140k a week in a 5-year deal. What we could have done last summer, and this will bring tears to your eyes, you don't need an onion, this will bring tears to your eyes. We could have sold Dean Henderson for 40 million in the summer and used that 40 million and the 140k a week we're giving him for a really good centre-back. But what we chose to do was give 140k a week and not sell for 40 million to keep a reserve goalkeeper. This is how this football club is run. There is no financial sense to what we did with Henderson and De Gea. And now there's no financial sense in relation to what we're going to do, because there is only one decision we can make here from a business point of view. Forget the footballers. The business point of view is you've got to stick with De Gea, or you're going to lose 50 to 100 million pounds because of the wages and writing it off. So We've made a stupid decision again. And this is why we need a director of football, because we keep making stupid decisions financially. Alexis Sanchez, Phil Jones contract, Andres Pereira contract, Mata's long contract in his 30s, Matic's long contract in his 30s, and then spending a big chunk of money on a goalkeeper that you can only pick one. To me, this is not even... I don't care what an ex-player, what a certain journalist does. I don't care what they do, but what I would like them to do is just actually engage their brain a little bit beyond, I want that goalkeeper to play in goal, because football has gone beyond that for a very long time. We are very much in a world where financials do kick in, and I can't see it. Even if I sat here and said I think De Gea's finished, which I don't, we've got to sell him, I can see the situation the club have put themselves into. The donkeys on the board will sell him cheap and use it as another excuse to not spend. Well, Marcus Laird, that might happen, and that's what worries me the most. We might let De Gea go for no money in the summer, and that we would be writing off over 50 million quid, quite simply, just in wages. What would this mean for Romero? I still rate the player, and depending on which goalkeeper leaves, he may leave too. Romero's costing us 80 grand a week and has done for 6 months. That's just more money that we're pissing in, we're burning. It's silly. And it's a disgrace that fans and the media have a go at the only person that carried us post-Fergie. De Gea doesn't deserve this. If we reward loyalty like this, why would Bruno or other foreigners stay, says AJ Singh. And the board run this club worse than an 8-year-old's lemonade stand, says Marcus Laird. I've seen some good lemonade stands in my time. I used to run a good one, and it probably was better than this board. But I don't know whether I agree with that last point. I don't know what everybody... what does everybody think about this situation, really? Are you just looking at it like Scholesy looked at it yesterday? Let's just drop the keeper and actually send our club into financial turmoil? Or are you actually looking at the bigger picture and realising that there are financials here? And actually, the solution for me is very, very clear. If we don't want to lose over 50 million quid, then we need to sell Dean Henderson in the summer, because one of them's got to go in the summer. And, you could loan De Gea, but who's going to pay 350 grand a week? We would have to do it. So that's stupid as well. Kanye East says sell De Gea. I mean, I don't know at what point you've just tuned in, but can you tell me who's going to buy De Gea then? Right? Apparently he's not very good, so we need to sell him. So why is some club going to go, da, 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 I'm super Pratt. I'm going to give you £50 million for David De Gea, and we're going to pay you 350k a week. Come on, David, we're flying off to Bayern. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know. Look, it's all about opinion, of course it is. I'm not going to get frustrated, but what I love about the community we've built on here is that people have opinions, but they also think things through. In the main, I can't be doing with sell De Gea. It really, really, in my mind, shows a lack of thinking, because it's not that easy. It isn't that. If it was that easy, then, maybe you've got a decision to be made there. But it's not that easy. And the reason it's not that easy, the people to get frustrated with are the board. They gave him a 5-year deal 18 months ago on a 350k a week. It absolutely clamps us into keeping him, whatever you think about it, because we can't remove him unless you want us to hemorrhage more money out of the club, which we can't afford to do when we're supposedly trying to rebuild. Thank you for the contribution, Hollis. Who will buy Henderson and can get a buyback clause? Well, there won't be a shortage of people trying to buy Dean Henderson. And the reason there won't be a shortage of people trying to sign Dean Henderson is because he's a good goalkeeper. He's young. His wages are realistic for his value. 140 grand a week would be realistic. And we'd probably get 30 to 40 million pounds on him. So I think that's the deal to do. Common sense is a wonderful thing. Some people should really try it sometimes, because Kenneth... Well, look, I don't want to just go... I think the worst thing we could do as a community is go live on this story and say, should we sell De Gea or should we sell Henderson? Because it does a disservice to people's brain cells, because it's not that easy. It really isn't. You can't just say, which one should we sell? Because there's a huge financial package behind both of them. And unfortunately, when it comes to selling Henderson and De Gea, Henderson's got to go. Because otherwise, we're going to forget buying players. We're going to lose tens of millions of pounds. Unless there is somebody out there, unless there is a club out there that goes, ooh, I want to give £18 million a year. I mean, £18 million a year is what David De Gea is apparently earning. And somebody said a couple of weeks ago, Alaba's not worth it. He wants £12 million a year. What a centre back that we need. We won't pay £12 million a year. Ramos can't get 14 million at Real Madrid. We're paying 18 million a year to David De Gea, and somebody thinks that there's a team in world football in this COVID crisis that's going to go, yeah, United, we'll give you 50 million and we'll give David 18 million. Because it's not about... United might say, you know what? Imagine PSG come over and say, we'll give you 30 million for De Gea. And United go, well, we've got Henderson, we'll take the 30 million. That deal's not done. That deal's only done if PSG also say, we'll give you 18 million, David. Because he can just say, no, I don't care whether United take 30 million. I'm not knocking my wages down by 50%. I've got 3.5-year contract here that's got 18 million a year on it. I'd sell Maguire, donkey slow, never drop too much power at the club. Instead of looking for better players to prop him up, why don't we just cut off the head of the snake and start again, says Nick P. Would not be surprised if this is not just another attempt by the board to distract from the real issues our team has, says Marcus Laird. It feels like that, Marcus. It does feel like that. I mean, I'm saddened again that we're now into week 2 talking about David De Gea. But I'm also saddened by the lack of research that these people who are putting these stories out are doing. Like, it's just not that easy. It's not that easy to sell De Gea. On the 2 goalkeepers, can I just say, there is a chance that Dean Henderson can be a world-class goalkeeper. There is. I've never said that that's not the case. There is a chance. But we've put ourselves into a position where, for many different reasons, we've got to stick with David. And I'm happy to stick with him. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I don't think he's the problem. And I feel that the club absolutely 99% has to stick with him for many reasons. Maybe a bit of loyalty, okay. But look, you can't be loyal forever. I thought it was the time to sell Rooney because he wasn't good anymore. You can't just stay loyal for past things. So I wouldn't say that's a huge reason. I think the financial situation absolutely confirms that we've got to stick with him. We made a massive outlay to keep that goalkeeper here at the club, and we need to stick by that. Otherwise, we're going to hemorrhage a lot of money. If we could ideally sell Henderson and have a buyback clause in it, I would like that. But I think that's what we should have done in the summer. I think, I really can't understand. I really can't understand what we were thinking last summer. I really don't understand how you could think it was... I just don't know. I don't know what they were thinking in the summer when they said, there's a contract for Dean, 140k a week, 5-year deal, and we've got David De Gea, 350k a week, 5-year deal. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? Did you think the Premier League were going to change the rules and say that from now on you can have 2 goalkeepers? Like... It was always a stupid thing to do, and it was always going to end up like this. And it was always going to be, well, how do we sell somebody on 350k a week? How do we even do that? They've just created I've never known this before. I can't think of many examples, that's for sure, where you've got 2 fantastic goalkeepers, but you can only pick one. It's always going to end badly. And worst case scenario, you could damage both. You could damage both goalkeepers. I've played football, watched football, as many of you have. Goalkeepers are their own. They are their own thing. They don't get to run around a lot. They have to be focused. They have to be concentrated. They have to feel loved. They have to feel confident. Have we not created a situation here with 2 good goalkeepers where they're both a little bit like, I just don't understand why we did it in the first place. Does De Gea meet the requirements of modern goalkeeper, says Yash? Look, personally, I think David De Gea is still a very, very good goalkeeper, and I still think he's good enough to be our number 1. I can't be more honest than that. I accept that some people think that he isn't, but I think this goes beyond that. I think that... I just don't think the debate even exists. I don't think De Gea is playing badly. I'm actually quite annoyed that we have to play Dean in the Europa League because we've created this situation, and I'd be annoyed if I was Dean that I only get to play in the Europa League as well. I think we've created this stupid situation as a football club. We've put these 2 good goalkeepers in a stupid situation, and I also think that how do you resolve this now? It's become a big story that we just didn't need to be a big story, because for every minute we spend thinking about this, we're not talking about how the fucking hell is Lindelof still being picked at centre-back when Eric Bailly's fit. How the hell are our midfielders not picking up people in the box and allowing them free shots on goal? The real issues of Manchester United are those issues. They're not the goalkeeping issues, but it has become an issue. Fabianski's out of contract in the summer. West Ham want Hendo and Jay Lings for Rice, says Louis Dunn. I'd do that. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that. They can have Lingard and Henderson, and we'll have Declan Rice. And I think that's about that would be around Lingard 20 million, Henderson 40 million. I'd do that. Andy, who is the one giving out contracts? How many of our Deadwood players are on wages between 80 and 120k? It's a joke, Mark. Thanks for the content. Well, look, this is why we need a director of football. They get off the hook so many times in relation to how they deal with contracts. And as I said at the start of the video, wherever you sit on Henderson versus De Gea, the real issue, this has been created, the real issue that's going on here was created by the board or whoever it was that said, yeah, let's keep both. I've never known a situation like this where you've got two fantastic goalkeepers fighting for one spot. It's ridiculous. And the money we've wasted on it. I mean, this is the scariest thing of all. We need to buy players. We already know that there's not a lot of money to buy players in the summer. And yet we are coughing up over 600k a week on goalkeepers at this football club. When you combine Romero's 80k, Henderson's 140k, Grant's wages and David De Gea's 350, over £600,000 a week we are paying on goalkeepers. Most clubs in the Premier League won't be paying a third of that, even a fourth of that. And yet we're on course to concede more goals than we've conceded in ages. But to be fair, I think that's on our centre-backs, to be honest with you. Justice for De Gea, says Min. Mark, it's the deflection of blame that annoys me. De Gea is the least of our worries, says Jamie. And yeah, and that's the biggest thing. And look, I can't speculate on why certain media outlets and certain ex-players are going after the goalkeeper all the time. I heard somebody say he's the biggest problem in the team. And I'm like, you shouldn't even be on telly, mate. How are you getting paid? If you think that David De Gea is the biggest problem in our team, you must have been hibernating like a tortoise for autumn. What are you on about? That is not the biggest problem in our team. But it is becoming a problem, not because of the media, but because something needs to be done. You've got to pick a team. You've got to go with one of these goalkeepers and you've got to stick with it. And I think that if I was Ed Woodward or I was the Glazers, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came into my office and said, well, here's a scenario for you, right? I'm Ed Woodward, unluckily, or I'm the Glazers, right? And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes into my office and says, look, I've made a decision. I'm going to go with Dino. I'm going with Dino in goal. I would say, you're not buying anyone in the summer then. Why? Because if you go with Dean Henderson, you leave me with David De Gea on 375k a week or whatever it is, and 3.5 years left on his contract, and nobody wants to buy him. Do you realise what that does, Ollie? It means we get stuck with a player who is our best paid player, which is always a big headline, on 18 million a year, and you've put him on the bench to stick with Dean, which is fine. What am I supposed to do with the biggest asset this football's got and I can't sell it? You are basically going to cost this football club £18 million a year and we won't be able to sell him. It's a huge loss, Ollie. Do you want to think again? Did I say Dino? I meant David. David's the one I'm sticking with. Can we sell Dino? But that's never right, is it? That should never be why you choose De Gea. But the club have put themselves in that situation where I think financially they have to stick with De Gea. And if they don't, we've got another Alexis Sanchez on our hands where we're just going to hemorrhage a load of money on another big mistake. And for a club that's all about money, the mistakes we made and the money we blow is absolutely ridiculous. They don't want to appoint a director of football, but a director of football would... Well, off the top of my head, if we'd appointed a director of football 5 years ago, he would have saved us over £100 million in the last 5 years, just off not doing stupid things. Like, if you think about the stupid signings, the stupid contract renewals, £100 million in the last 5 years. Considering Phil Jones' contract over 5 years was about 14 million, like, you could, a competent director of football would have saved this club over £100 million in the last 5 years. And yet they don't want one, but they're costing themselves. What I don't understand about Manchester United is that we are owned by people who want to make money, but they hemorrhage money on bad decisions. And if they appointed somebody to do that job as director of football, they would make more money. Therefore, they would make more dividends by saving money. But it's crazy. It's crazy. We can't cancel Phil. We could just cancel Phil Jones' contract, Shay, but he's still got 3 years left on it at $4 million a year, so that would be $12 million. You have to remember though, when they gave De Gea the contract, he was a different level, and Henderson was a nobody. I think De Gea would move rather than be on the bench, says Robert McCormack. But Robert, two things there. David De Gea got his contract 18 months ago. I think De Gea was at his worst then. I think he's much better now than he was then. Remember, 18 months ago, De Gea wasn't actually playing very, very well. And the second thing is, you think De Gea would move rather than sit on the bench. Where's he going to go? This is the fuzzy thinking I'm talking about. Where is he going to go? Who's going to give him £18 million a year? Who's going to pay £50 million for him? £30 million for him? It's not. This is it. It's not that simple anymore because we've backed ourselves into a corner. What do we do next year if we have both goalkeepers are in the Champions League? Do we play our usual number one or play our reserve just to make them happy? Well, Manraj, I think this is one of the biggest things I empathise with everybody on. Whether you're Team Henderson, Team De Gea, or Team Don't Know, this situation we're in now is just it's amateur. Like, how can you have one goalkeeper for Thursday and one keeper for Sunday? Who does that? Like, you might do it in the Europa League, I suppose, and you might do it in the Carabao Cup, but you're absolutely right. If we're in the Champions League next year, you're telling me we're going to have a Premier League goalkeeper and a Champions League goalkeeper, and yet the back four in front of them will be pretty much the same for both. How amateur is that? Because how can one football club have one back four playing with one goalkeeper and then the same back four playing with a different goalkeeper twice a week? It doesn't breed continuity and confidence and consistency. This is why we should have one goalkeeper, because every time I've played football, and I've used this example before, but when I used to play quite decent football when I was like 15, 16, you play for the school and then you play for your Saturday team. And my Saturday team had a different goalkeeper to my school, but there were three of us from the back four that played for school and my Saturday team. And it wasn't easy because one goalkeeper was very vocal. One of them was quite quiet, but a better goalkeeper. One of them liked to come off the line, one of them didn't. One of them used to come for crosses, one of them didn't. And as a defender, you're always thinking, who am I playing with today? Continuity, consistency comes from playing together. And United do need a number one that plays every week. So I empathise with both sides here. Like, one of those goalkeepers should be playing all of our games, but we put ourselves into amateur hour by having two goalkeepers that are really good. But instead of making a decision last summer, we went, let's keep both in a position where you can only play one. It's really amateur what we've done. And they're going to have to make... The best bit is they're going to have to make the decision they should have made last summer, this summer anyway. Regardless of opinion, if you bench De Gea now, you will never be able to sell a keeper on 350k that's been dropped. I agree, Daniel Harding. If we bench De Gea, like these players, ex-players and journalists want us to, we are going to lose massive amounts of money. And if you want to rebuild a football club under our owners, we can't afford to lose loads of money. So for me, I don't know what I'm doing. Robert McCormack says, I'm saying he'd take a pay cut to pay. Well, he should be called Sir David De Gea then. What footballer is going to take a pay cut of over 50%? No. You're not going to be on £18 million a year and then take a pay cut down to £9 million a year to play regular first team football at a club you might not even want to be at. You're not. You're going to be pissed off and you're going to go, I'm on a big contract, and if you want me to leave, you better pay me off. Otherwise, I'm going to stay. And what would actually happen, Robert, you're half right. If we bench De Gea, the club would be like, we want to sell you, but no one will pay your wages. And David De Gea will say, well, have I got a future here? No, we're going with Henderson. Okay, 18 million a year. That's 60 million left on my contract. You give me 60 million, I'll go. See what I mean? You've just lost 60 million on a player that you're not even going to get. You're letting him go, which is the most stupidest thing in the world anyway. Are you Team De Gea, Mark? I am Team De Gea, but I'm not stubborn Team De Gea. Like, I've given this example before. Like, everyone knows 3 years ago I didn't think McTominay was going to be a first teamer for United, and fair play, he has become that. You don't get everything right. Everyone knows in 2019 I called Matic a bag of cement and said he was useless, and then a year ago he played really well for 6 months. Unfortunately, he's gone back to bag of cement Matic again. But look, people can change your mind. I'm not Adam, Martial, one of my favourite players, and I have to sit here and honestly, like I did yesterday, and say the way he's playing at the moment, I don't really want to use bad words, but it's not Anthony Martial, which basically translated means he's not playing very well. I have to accept that, even though he is one of my favourite players. He's not playing well. He's playing very, very badly. So I'll always be honest about things. And I think with De Gea, if next week against Chelsea when he's in goal, you know, it's 0-0. We've hit the post a couple of times. We've deserved to win the game, but it looks like it's going to be a draw. They put a cross in the box. He drops it and Werner taps it in and we lose. I'd be like, that's a big enough mistake in a big game that, right, give Henderson a go now, because that's not acceptable. But I haven't seen that this season. All I've seen is people want Henderson to play in goal. Well, you've got to be patient for that. I just think it's a bit like some people want Telles to play ahead of Shaw. There are still people out there that don't like Luke Shaw. Well, I've got no doubt that Telles could be a better left-back than Luke Shaw. And look, maybe Dean Henderson could be a better goalkeeper than David De Gea. But what I'm saying is I haven't seen any reason to drop those players. Luke Shaw doesn't deserve to be dropped for Telles, and David De Gea doesn't deserve to be dropped to Dean Henderson. So they're going to have to be patient. Those fans who want it to happen, and the media that want it to happen, and the players themselves that want it to happen. Patience for that to happen. If it happens, it happens. But you can't force a goalkeeper out because you know, like what we've seen with the media, with their little clips. Sky did it on bloody Monday. BT did it yesterday. These are the two mainstream UK sports channels scapegoating our goalkeeper because they want Dean Henderson in goal. Even though, in my mind, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that the mistakes have been that big. And also, look, you know, if you look at the Liverpool situation with Alisson, over recent weeks, if David De Gea had done that, even I would say give Dean Henderson a run. Liverpool haven't done that because Alisson's their goalkeeper and they're loyal to Alisson. All right, Adrian's not as good as Alisson, and that might be a reason as well. But Alisson is his goalkeeper at Klopp, and he's Klopp at Liverpool, and he's stuck with him. What has David De Gea done for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not to stick with him? Not next to nothing wrong. So this is my issue with it. Maybe in the future we might get to that point, but even if we did, I'd still be sat here saying, imagine David De Gea had 3 really bad games in a row and he gets dropped for Dean Henderson. I'd still be sat here saying we've got a huge bloody issue here, because how do you deal with this player when he's on that sort of money? Mark, love you, buddy. Tom Brady routinely takes pay cuts to help his team and just won the Glazers a Super Bowl, says Bryce Jones. And I don't understand why there's these bullshit stories keep popping up. We need to sell him. We need to sign him. Question the board who never do that when the time comes. But for now, no one talks about better defensive coaches, things that matter, says Angie S. And yeah, you know, I agree with Angie there. I think that the sad thing is we are awash with these types of stories, which we're reacting to right now, when this morning, in the first few minutes of the morning show, I brought up something that should be being discussed. It should be on Monday Night Football tonight. It should be on any analytical article about Manchester United in the mainstream. The reality is, in recent weeks, we've conceded 4 goals by not marking people in our own box. I don't even think it's the centre-back's fault. It's certainly not the goalkeeper's fault, but nobody's talking about it. Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin, the Sheffield United goal and the St Maximin goal yesterday, all second balls, all people in our box, all with total space to get a shot off, but no one's talking about it because I know, let's talk about something that's more of an agenda. Andrew Pillsworth says, have you hurt your eye? No, I'm having problems with my eyes. I think it's COVID. Not COVID with my eye. I just think that being stuck in a room under lights, not being able to get out a lot, dry heating and stuff, my eyes just get very watery at the moment. I'm not crying about De Gea. Do you think that Ramos is coming to United? No, Premier League football, I don't. And there's no support for De Gea, but according to some fans, win, lose or draw, back your players, says Zed Jamie. Well, I think this is funny, you know, if you criticise Maguire, if you criticise McTominay, if you criticise Dan James, it's all, support your players, support your players. If you criticise Martial, if you criticise De Gea, if you criticise Bruno, if you criticise Luke Shaw, yeah, fucking get them out of our club. There is a bit of a weird mentality with some of our United fans where you can't criticise some players, but others it's open season. I think you just need to be consistent with all of them. All this De Gea scapegoating just because some of us can't accept Maguire ain't good enough, says Nitin. Well, I might be on that. And today, lockdown exit. All right, yeah. Well, that's not really to do with football. We should sell Martial, James, Henderson, Mata, Pogba for Declan Rice, Koundé and Grealish, says Vinit. And would you prefer Lukaku over Martial? I don't want Lukaku back at the club. I know he's doing quite well, but I was very pleased when we sold Romelu Lukaku. I think it was one of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's best bits of business, actually. So I knew I wouldn't sell him at all. Anyway, please smash a like on the video. We are back at 8 o'clock tonight. I Miss Romero says I have a wee. And Mark, are we linked with AC Milan keeper? Is that why De Gea has to go? Says Mikael Roach. Well, why would you buy Donnarumma and sell De Gea when you've got Dean Henderson? It makes no sense. So that story must be a load of nonsense. We are on the road to 1 million. We're on 991,000. So please subscribe if you've not subscribed. Bottom right hand corner, share the video. We are on the road to 1 million, and it's amazing. So thanks everyone who's getting involved in the channel. Please subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Smash a like on the video. We're back at 8 o'clock, and I'm doing career mode at 3:45 if you want to join me on Mark Goldbridge, That's Football. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I think the bottom line from this video for me is that this is just a ridiculous story at this point. It's not as simple as drop this goalkeeper, play this goalkeeper. There are huge financial issues behind it. And if we did decide to drop David De Gea, this club will lose 50 million plus, because we won't be able to sell him. We'll have to buy him off, and we'll just lose masses of money. When you make somebody the best paid player at your club 18 months ago, you better show a bit of bloody loyalty to them. Because if you're thinking about kicking them out because you think the other goalkeeper might be better, you better be prepared to lose a shitload of money. And the club have put themselves in this stupid situation. And journalists and ex-players and fans need to start copping onto that. Because it's not just as simple as, oh, I'd quite like Dean Henderson in goal. Because by dropping David De Gea and going with Dean Henderson, you are going to hemorrhage tens of millions of pounds on the contract that we've given him. So you've got to think it through a little bit better than that. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to subscribe, smash a like, and I'll see you in a bit.